back to my channel. This is just a general kind of little update video on what I've been doing lately. So there are a few things I want to talk about. First of all, I've been getting a little bit into poetry lately because I wanted to try and write some poems, or just to like kind of, I don't know, sort of learn how to write poetry, I guess, because I hadn't written poetry for a very long time. When I was a child, I sometimes wrote poetry and little stories for fun. But as an adult, I stopped doing that. I stopped doing that when I was a teenager, really. And I just thought, I'd like to just try and see if I can do it again. I don't know, because I've been sort of spending a lot of time alone lately. Obviously, I don't really have much of a life at the moment, and I guess I've just been trying to kind of try different things as a way of trying to challenge myself a little bit. So I got this book out. Left it in the other room annoyingly, but it's called Grow Your Own Poem, and if you're interested, by the way, just type in Grow Your Own Poem and it should come up, the book. And it kind of tells you how to write poems based upon other poems, so you use the other poem a little bit like a sort of scaffold or a kind of skeleton, I guess, that you then can sort of borrow the basic skeleton or scaffold and then kind of use it to sort of grow your own poem. So I've had a little look at that book. Some of the poems in there don't particularly inspire me, and I find them a little bit, I sort of feel like maybe that they could have used more inspiring poems in there to draw upon, but I guess poems are a very personal thing. But I did use one of the poems in the book to kind of grow my own poem, and I wanted to read it out to you. I have to say it's not, it's fairly primitive as poems go, and it's not like a great poem at all, but I'm glad I wrote it because, it's just as a start, and obviously it's about autism. It's a little bit dark, it's not a very light poem, it's rather dark, but the poem, but the example poem given was also drawing upon someone's rather bad experiences, so in a similar vein I thought I'd draw upon my own experience of being autistic and not understood, so that's why it does come across as a little bit dark. But I'll also read you a more cheerful poem afterwards. So the poem I wrote, so I'll just read it to you. Where is it? Oh yes, I wrote it down. So here it goes. Some people know what it is like to be called mild and high functioning by complete strangers, to be short of self-esteem, to be short of inclusion, to be short of friends, to wait an eternity for support that never comes, to wait for acceptance, to wait for love, to be out of work, to be out of living, to be out of society, to be out of the social, to long for success, to long for recognition, to wish for freedom from anxiety, to wish for freedom from doubt, to wish for validation of the struggle, to never understand people, to never live independently, to never know how to relax, to be overestimated, to be underestimated, to be eternally misunderstood and rejected, to be eternally misunderstood and rejected. And some people will never know what it's like to struggling to function and be, sorry, I wrote this out and I crossed it out, so I'm trying to read my handwriting. Just read that bit again. To be overestimated, to be underestimated, to be eternally misunderstood, and some people will never know what it's like struggling to function and autistic. I think that's how it ended. I just crossed out lots of bits and then I was trying to read my handwriting. I should really have read, I'm a bit disorganised today. I'm always disorganised. I should have written it out more neatly and read out that version, but I don't think. But yeah, that's basically the poem anyway. It's a little bit of a dark poem. but it was based upon a scaffold, a sort of skeleton of someone else's poem that was also quite dark and using the same sort of format. The other poem I wrote, which is more upbeat, wasn't included. The scheme for that wasn't included in the book because it's basically an acrostic, and an acrostic is the most basic form of poem. It's what we're sort of taught at primary school, nursery school. It's very basic, and I guess if you want to write a poem but you want to do one that's more comparatively simple, then an acrostic would be the one for you. And I really like fairies. I'm interested in fairies, particularly at the moment. I don't know what that's all about. Maybe it's something to do with like COVID and that, but sort of like fairies have become a sort of little, I don't know if at the level of like a sort of our borderline special interest territory. What I mean by that is that I'm not like really it's at the borders where it could become hardcore obsessed. But it's kind of like potentially heading in that direction, potentially. But yeah, I do like fairies. And so I did an acrostic called Flower Fairy. So here it goes. An acrostic, by the way, just to remind you if anyone's forgotten what it is basically where you have, as a title of your poem, so for example mine is Flower Fairies, and then you write that title, you write the first letter of each word of the title down the left hand side of the page, and then each letter then forms the first word of each sentence, if you see what I mean. So mine is Flower Fairies. So here goes. Flowers adorning the rural green, laughing in the breeze. Otherworldly, but, sorry, I'm going to start again, because, sorry, just bear with me. I'm very disorganised now, I should have written it out again. See my cycle crossed out, I'm trying to do my writing, sorry. Let's start again. Flowers adorning the rural green, laughing in the breeze. Otherworldly balm, wild and overflowing, ephemeral beauty, radiant with dew. Fantastic fluttering confetti, it's a bit of alliteration there. Fantastic fluttering confetti, apparitions, a circle of light, iridescent butterfly wings, rejoicing the waking day, youthful and free. So that was my acrostic Flower Fairies. I was actually quite pleased with that one because it's actually surprisingly hard writing an acrostic, even though they're meant to be the easiest poems. They're not actually. They're actually pretty difficult. So I'm pleased that I did it. I sort of feel, looking at it, I could improve it, but as a first attempt, I mean, everything can be improved, let's face it, but as a first attempt, I'm quite pleased with myself that I did at least write it. And the other thing, poems don't have to rhyme. There's a bit of a misconception that poems have to rhyme, and I think that puts people off writing poetry. They don't have to rhyme. They also don't have to have a rhythm. Like, you know, some poems have a rhythm, like with Shakespeare, you have iambic pentameter, which I would find really difficult to write a poem along that format, because you have to constantly think about, you know, it's like an unstressed followed by a stressed syllable, but you'd have to sort of constantly think about it, and that would kind of annoy me and put me off writing, because it would feel too much like a chore. And also, I think also because I've got dyscalculia, which obviously is to do with maths, but it's broader than that, I'm not very good at kind of doing those patterns. That's also why I struggled. I used to go dancing when I was a teenager, and I loved it, but I do find it quite hard to keep to time. And I think that's my dyscalculia, unfortunately. And it can also play out in terms of making it difficult for me to kind of understand patterns and metrics and stuff. That's why I always struggled in English as well, trying to understand it, you know. I can read Shakespeare fine, by the way, and I like Shakespeare. I haven't read it for years, but I can understand it and read it. But the whole trying to understand the iambic pentameter schemes and stuff was like going over my head. I was like, it's because it's all like patterns and stuff, and it sort of confuses me. Even I know what it is, but it sort of confuses me. So having to write a poem like that in that kind of way would just put me off. So I was pleased to find out that you don't have to follow these schemes at all. There's a type of poetry that's actually quite common nowadays called free verse, and free verse basically gets no rules. All that matters in free verse is that basically the play of words, like creating beautiful images, and that's what free verse is all about. It's poetry without rules. It's just informal, you know. You create your own rules. All that matters is the words and creating beauty out of the words. And that's a lot easier to do. I enjoy words. I enjoy playing with words. Yeah, it's good to include, you know, metaphors, similes, rhetorical devices and all of that if you want to create a good poem. But with free verse, you know, the main thing is just creating beauty with language. It doesn't contain all those rules that can put you off. So I think free verse is obviously the poetry for me. So when I'm trying to write poems, I'm not going to bother with rhyme because that just stresses me out. If a good rhyme comes to me, I'll include it, but I'm not going to be actively hunting for rhyme because that just stresses me out. I'm not going to be doing iambic pentameter and all of that. I'm just going to be doing free verse. Walt Whitman, by the way, was did a lot of free verse. So, you know, you don't have... So there is this misconception that poems have to rhyme and that they have to have a rhythm. There are certain poems that do have follow those rules, but it doesn't have to. That's what I want to say. So yeah, so let me know, do any of you write poetry or any of that? Do any of you write stories or any of that? Do let me know. Okay, so that's that. I'm now going to move on to video number 2 because I want to talk about some other things I've been reading and doing. So moving on to video number 2 now.